Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Savage and Mr. Stress-Free, Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Today we welcome you and thank you for joining us on the show. Ratanjit, this show was, the title today, the theme of today's show was actually inspired by one of our guests. And they asked this question, and I think it's a really good one because all of us have days of happy and not so happy. We have some days when we're miserable. We have some days when we're feeling pretty good. But we all know some people who seem to be happy all the time, where even through difficulties, we can count on them to have a good attitude, a smiling face, and pick us up and make us feel better. And you have to wonder why that is. Why are some people, despite the world and all the difficulties, able to be happy all the time? And is that realistic? Is that something that we should strive to be like? Or are they living in a fantasy and maybe they're not supposed to be that way? Are we supposed to admire that? Or should we be grateful that we have a real life feeling and we know that life sometimes is not good and sometimes it's great? What do you think about that? Why are some people happy all the time?
Well, technically, there are many reasons. If we get into technicalities, if we have less information, we have less to worry about. If we are, in the worldly sense, not very smart, you will be. But
that's true.
Now there is a totally another reason. There are, I know, very, very smart people who are also happy.
Right.
So it's not, I'm not saying, and there are very stupid people which are always unhappy. So that doesn't
matter. Exactly. Right.
So what I think happens is if you somehow did not follow the instruction to grow up, you remained as a child somehow within you. So let's see, what does a child really lives in the present. Child is always learning new things. Child has very low expectations. Child is always very smallest thing make the child very happy. Littlest things. So whereas in our life, we don't appreciate the little things, Ray. You know, my wife is one of those amazing people who is so smallest thing make her so happy. One day I was deep asleep. She wakes me up. Say, get up, see how beautiful the moon is. Initially, when she did that after our marriage, I thought, gosh, this girl is crazy. I'm fast asleep. What is so special about moon? It comes and goes every day. But when I went there with her and saw that, and we sat there for 3 hours watching the moon.
Wow.
And lack of sleep of 3 hours did not bother us next day when we got up. See, another thing is that we are all educated. We are given a recipe for everything. This is how you play this game. Growing up, when, especially in my case, I'm 82, and when I was a little kid, obviously we did not have the kind of sophisticated toys we have today.
Right.
So we would invent things to be playing. So constantly we utilize our innovations.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no better way to be happy once you utilize your creative capacity. And today, we kill that creative capacity through education. So we are in the recipe mode. We have a very dear friend who just got married to a amazing chef. So this couple was visiting us. So chef said, okay, I'm going to cook today. So he went into the kitchen and, oh gosh, this is not there, that is not there, that is not there. So he made a list to send somebody to get some of the things from the store. So then his wife, who knew my wife as an amazing cook, so she says, tomorrow you are going to cook. And Dolly went into the kitchen, whatever was in the fridge, she made things, and such a delicious meal, all creative. She never duplicates anything. She's an amazing, creative human being.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would say many times, look, I'm going to see this in this person, I need something to give him, a gift. And she'll go in the house and put together things in such a beautiful presentation. It is amazing. So I don't have to run to the store to create a gift. So it is the creativity as a child which we have lost. And until that creativity is rekindled, we are not going to be happy. So,
you know, it's such a shame. It's such a shame that we want our children to grow up. I mean, we look forward to them going through school and graduating and going to college and getting married or whatever they're going to do as they get older. And we don't realize what a joy it is, not only for us to watch them grow up, but for them to be children, for them to stay young and enjoy everything you're talking about, because we do. It's so sad. We take that away from them. We structure them. We give them all kinds of rules and all kinds of, no, you can't do it that way. This is the way you do this. This is, and we make them fall in step with whatever ideas and processes and plans that are out there in the world. And no wonder we become sad. I mean, it makes perfect sense if you think about it.
Yes.
You know, I think we all remember kids playing games, running around, just making things up as we go along. I mean, the game doesn't go the way we thought it would, so we change it. It wasn't fun, so we just say, okay, let's change the rules. Let's just do something different, because when you're a kid, you can do that. Nobody cares. It's like, okay, whatever it is in the moment, I can do it. And so you're always having fun, because if you're not, you change it until you do. So is that, I mean, are we just dreaming here, Ratanjit? Are we just talking like a couple of old guys that are reminiscing on the past because we're not being realistic? I mean, how can you survive in the world today that's so structured and so technologically advanced, with so many rules, so many laws, so many responsibilities? How can you maintain that exuberance, that creative joy?
So we are not technically advanced. We are technically backward. See, look at the older generation. It's not a show of the older generation, but the main thing was they had their mind fully available to them. Our education system, our planning, our training has basically, when we label the school through a IQ test, as this is an intelligent curse, this is an intelligent boy, it's non-intelligent boy, not realizing their intelligence may not be IQ intelligence. There are different kind of intelligence. We don't allow to let the child capitalize on the intelligence they are gifted with. They could have musical intelligence, they could have artistic intelligence, they could have intuitive intelligence, they could have literary intelligence. There's thousands type of intelligence they could have. And we are basically, our entire thinking process is all driven by making money. We are preparing our students or citizens to find a job. We have talked about in our education programs. And as a consequence, we are killing our intuitive creativity in us. Very few of us are left with, in spite of all this. And is there any wonder that so many college dropouts have become billionaires?
Yeah.
So the happiness, lasting happiness, is not tied into materialistic world, whereas the world is telling us a recipe of happiness. And once you get educated and accept that recipe and chase that happiness, which is formulated by this world, that if you have this kind of a car, you have this kind of a house, or if you have this kind of a job, if you have this kind of a title, this kind of a status, you'll be happy. But once we get there, we have midlife crisis, because that is not happiness. Happiness is internal feeling, Ray. I have to utilize my total faculties for me to be happy. If I don't utilize my capabilities and enhance my capabilities, whenever as a child I learned something, how happy I was. I wanted to show the whole world. See, I learned this.
Mm-hmm.
So learning, even at 80 years of age, gives you happiness, gives you joy. But we have stopped people from learning. We throw away the books when we come out of school. And we are basically, what is my inner inclination to do, I kill that to find a job which is going to pay money. I'm not employed if I'm an artist. I'm not employed if I'm able to do certain things better. I'm only employed if I can do computers. I'm only employed if I can make gadgets. So that inherently makes you unhappy.
How do you think all of that started? I mean, do you think there was a plan, or I mean, it's so clear what you're saying is true. And anybody who's gone through the educational process, that they put you into kind of buckets, and they say, okay, you're good at math, so go along the math career. You're good at science, go into those things. You're good at language and communication, go this way. I mean, they kind of identify for us, and then they push us in that direction to do those skills. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they frown on anything with the arts. I mean, they that's a hobby, that's a nice hobby, but unless they notice you right off the bat that you are absolutely a brilliant artist or a brilliant poet or a brilliant musician, they say, well, you can't make a living doing that. So just do that as a hobby and find a real job. Whatever it is, whatever that area of creativity is, they try to talk you out of it. Okay. Why do you think that is the case? Are they confused at, are the bosses over the years, are the leaders, are they confused, or is there a plan there? I hate to sound like I'm being paranoid, but would they prefer that people aren't creative?
Well, see, what happens is in our system of life, people are promoted to decision-making capacities based on their education, and if they have a loud mouth and they are able to prove that they are the leader, and leadership is again mistaken. Leadership is given to people who insult others and who are constantly speaking their mind, and they're able to, no, this is not how it's going to be. Let me tell you how it is going to be. And those are our leaders. And then they make the decisions. And then all of us suffer from that decision, because a book which is prescribed as a textbook in a school, and that is a textbook, whether you like it or no. And a curriculum is specified by people. Now, the interesting thing is, my grandmother and your grandmother and our grandmothers, that our mothers, they're all great parents, right?
Yes.
But they did not. And today's young girl who has baby at the age of 40 or something, and suddenly after 4 years of being mother, writes a book, How to Be a Parent. And
Right.
it becomes a bestseller. And so now all this thing which your intuitive parenting comes as a parent is not correct, because now you have to follow this paradigm written by this.
I've often wondered about that. I must tell you that you're exactly right on. I walk through a bookstore and I see all these books, how to do this and why this is this. And I say, what makes these people the experts? What really gives them the ability to tell everybody in the world how to do this, what to do? I mean, it's crazy, especially when you are right, when you say all these generations of people seem to be so much better at it, seem to have such better results from what they were doing. And yet all these experts today are just an expert because they put their ideas down on paper. Doesn't really make them an expert just because they wrote a book.
So see, if the book was endorsed by somebody who was famous,
yeah.
It was written by a professional ghost artist, and so it's not even written by the person who wrote the book. This is their name.
Right.
And some ideas, they sat in the library and copied the idea written by somebody else. Some of those are not even original. Right. So that's how the books are created. And then they found a big publicity stunt to promote the book, and suddenly it hit the bestsellers list.
Yeah.
Now, most of these bestseller list books are not even worth reading.
I do agree with you. I have to agree with you. It's and then those are the ones that we look up to as being how to live and how to do this and that, and they don't have any credibility at all. All right, we have to take a quick break here, Ratanjit. We are talking today about why some people are happy all the time. And we've just started this topic. I do like the idea, the first thing you said about being kids again, being creative, being young, but I still don't know if we can do that. Excuse me, I know I can sneeze. I don't know if I can stay young. When we come right back in just a moment, we're going to find out, is it possible to be an adult in this world, to have responsibilities, to do all the things that we need to do as a adult and still maintain some of the abilities and some of the personality and some of the happiness that a child has? That's a good question. We'll come back and see if we can answer it on this edition of Stress Free Living. Stay with us. We're back on Stress Free Living. Ratanjit and yours truly, Ray Samish, with you. Thank you so much for being with us. Talking today about how we can stay happy and why are some people happy all the time. Ratanjit, one of the ideas you had is that maybe they are still living like kids, living creatively, not letting things bother them, living in the present, not worried about the past. You know, one thing I do have to mention, they do live in the present, but they are very excited. Kids are very excited about the future. If you think about kids that you talk to, and I have the pleasure of being with my grandchildren, I can't wait. My birthday's only 3 months away. Christmas is only 8 months away. Summer is coming. It's going to be so nice to be out of school. Whatever it is, they look forward with positive feelings about things in the future. They live in the present, but they're so positive and excited about what's ahead of them. And, we tend to say, oh, gee, my birthday is coming. I'm going to be another year older. Or Christmas is coming. That means we're going to have to buy all kinds of presents and clean the house. And we're going to have have people over and go to parties that we don't want to go to. It's totally a different attitude when we get older about looking forward to things as opposed to being a kid. So how can we bring some of this kiddishness into our adult life? I mean, is it possible that we can still have some of those qualities and yet be a responsible parent, be a responsible worker? Can you do both?
See, if you realize why we are stressed and why we are angry or concerned or worried about Christmas or any event, it comes down to what the world is going to say if I didn't do this. If I did not give them the present this Christmas, oh, I have to give her this present, but she never did this, but I have to do that. Oh, I don't like this person, but I still have to give her a present, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, we are living life from what world has asked us to live. World has defined what is good for us, what is happiness for us, and all that. And there is an ego which has been inspired within us. If you don't do that, you are a bad person. You are not a right father. You are not a right mother. You are not a right friend. You are not a right employee. You are not a right boss. And so that it doesn't come from your inner heart. We never really are in touch with ourselves. A child expresses openly what is inside comes out, whereas what comes out is all tailor-made. What is going to look good, what is going to appeal to others. We are not even able to tell our own truth. So we are lying to ourselves continuously. And that is ultimately creates unhappiness because it diminishes your self-worth. What you think of your own self is now low. Happiness comes from what you think of yourself. If you think higher of yourself, and if you don't think in those terms, then you bring in your ego. The world tells you, you have to think better. You are this and you are that. Look at what you have achieved. So you start putting numbers. This is my paycheck. This is my title. This is my house is worth this and this. So that is how I create my self-worth. And that is all erroneous self-worth, because the real self cannot be fooled.
I'm understanding what you're saying, but I want to go back a couple of steps, because you said something that I hadn't thought about before, that I don't think we've talked about before. We've talked about when you have insecurity, your ego goes up and you start saying things and acting in certain ways. And I think our audience understands that concept. But before that, you said, if we're not happy with if we, I'm trying to think how you've said it. If we are not happy with ourselves, then that's why we have to say things and do certain things. Being happy with ourselves, I interpret that differently than being confident in ourselves. Having confidence to me is different than being happy. So I thought that ego comes from a lack of confidence, a lack of security. I think you've suggested that it also comes from a lack of contentment and a lack of happiness. And I'm interested in pursuing that thought. If we're not happy with ourselves, if we're not happy with what we do and with our life, do we immediately then think that we have failed? Is that the idea, that we are not what we thought we'd be? We're not doing what we thought we would do. So that makes me unhappy and therefore I'm insecure. Is that how it works?
See, if there was a measurement of an ego, how much unit of ego you have, we have done 10 units or 100 units or whatever it is.
Okay.
The unit of ego is directly proportional to the unit of insecurity you have.
Right.
So to camouflage, to cover your insecurity, your system brings out ego in you.
Right. Right.
And so when you have inner peace, inner confidence, the true confidence, which is not based on your outer material wealth or outer decoration, trophies and medal or fame, that inner confidence is what it comes out of what you truly think of yourself. If you are comfortable with who you feel you are, then you have less of ego because you have less of insecurity.
Right.
And so we are not doing things to build the self-worth. What I truly think is good for me, see, it's like this, right? If you are traveling and you are on the highway and you suddenly saw a stranded car and your inside somehow convinced you that you have to stop by. This looks like a older gentleman waving his hand or her hand. So you stop by and says, so what happened? Says, my car broke down. Can you give me a lift? So you give that person a lift, and or if the person says my tire is flattened and I don't have strength to change the tire, if you help that person to change the tire, although you will never hear from that person, you never would, so you suddenly feel elated inside. And so you know how to increase your self-worth. When yourself is useful for some unconditional reasons, you have a higher self-worth. And so we have not told how to build our self-worth. We are generally doing good things when somebody gives me a medal or a trophy or blast my name on some place, then I give money, and then I basically, and that is all ego driven. Because your self knows that is all erroneous, that is not unconditional.
Everything you've said, I didn't want to stop you because everything you've said makes sense. Everything you've said is right on. I agree with you, and it's very well stated. But I'm confused because that's not what I was asking. You brought up in this conversation of happiness causing insecurity, a lack of happiness making me insecure, making me without confidence. And that's what I don't understand, Ratanjit. Where does happiness come into that? I understand insecurity causing ego. I understand lack of confidence causing ego. Why does a lack of happiness cause insecurity and cause ego?
See, when you are hungry, when you eat good food, your stomach is full and you suddenly feel satisfied. So happiness is a situation like this. When you have done right things, a consequence is satisfaction, which is resulting into happiness. That is what happiness by itself is not there. It is a consequence of your having higher. See, if you are in the creative mode, if you have created something new, so your self-worth goes up and ultimately you feel happy. And similarly, if you have made somebody happy, you feel happy because indirectly your self-worth has gone up. So all those consequences of doing the right things are making you happy.
So the kids, going back to the kids, because we spent so much time talking about that, kids are happy. They're running around, they're creative, they're living in the moment, they're hanging out with their friends, they're creating games, they're enjoying the earth, they're enjoying the summertime, they're doing all these kind of things, they're happy. Do they have a higher self-worth then too, when they're happy at that point? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does their happiness give them self-worth, or do they have self-worth which makes them happy?
See, when kids are playing and enjoying and they're in the creative mode, they're learning something. Anytime a kid learns something, oh, he's happy. Anytime he builds a puzzle, puts together a puzzle, very happy. And so it's indirectly giving them a higher self-worth at that moment. And as a result of that self-worth, the happiness is a phenomena which are your mind and your whole expresses happiness. That is the consequence of higher true self-worth.
Okay, I never really connected happiness to self-confidence and feeling more self-worth and more secure.
Self-confidence is a consequence of self-worth again. So self-worth is very important. You have to remember, the whole world is existing only because you exist. Your perception, if your eyes are closed, if you are in coma, or if you are, you cannot you cease to see the world. The world ceases to exist, right?
True.
So it is you, your perception counts the most. So if your perception about the world is not correct, then everything else is erroneous. And so you have to have a real right perspective. And you have to understand that I am there to please the inner me. My happiness, my contentment, my joy, my victory, my everything comes from my inner being, what it thinks of me. So there's a real boss sitting within me, deciding whether you're happy or whether you are not happy, whether you have higher self-confidence or you're not self-confidence. So that automatically monitors the activity which you are conducting. So if your activity is not adding value, if it's not making a difference, or you're not utilizing your inner creativity, or you are not upgrading your skills or your knowledge, so that's self-worth is not elevated.
That is something I have to tell you, I've never thought of it that way before, but it makes perfect sense. Very, very interesting. We're going to come back, and we got to take a quick break here. Come back with a little more on that. So I really do understand how happiness makes us content and gives us self-worth, which is kind of like a cycle as I really view it in my brain, because if the happiness gives us self-worth and contentment, then it's easy to be happy too.
Other around, self-worth gives you happiness.
Well, see, that's what I want to talk about. I said, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So we're going to come back and straighten that out again, answer that question, and bring this to the finish line here as we talk about why some people, doggone them, are always happy. And can we be like that? Or do we even want to? We're talking today on Stress-Free Living. We'll be right back. We're back on Stress-Free Living. Ray Samich with you today, and Ratanjit and Ray, talking about how we can be happy, why some people are always happy, and what we can do about this, how we can maybe change something in our life so that we feel happy and can maybe become one of those people that others are envious of, because we could be that happy person in the room all the time. Ratanjit, before we move into the answering that question, how can we be happy? I want to clarify what we ended the last segment with, because I got a little confused. We talked about kids running around, being creative, not having any care in the world, playing games, enjoying themselves, being happy. And I thought you said then that, being happy then brings them to fulfillment, improves their self-worth, improves their self-confidence, and they go from there. But then you came back and says, no, self-worth is first. That makes them happy. Can you elaborate on that?
See, you have to distinguish between 5 senses happiness. If you give ice cream to a kid, they're very happy, right?
Right, sure.
Take them to a ride, they're very happy. But that happiness does not last. They want more. That after finishing the ice cream, it lasts only a few minutes, and now they want on to something else. If you get them on the addiction of that side, addiction of satisfying their 5 senses, you'll have a bratty kid, right?
Probably true, right?
But then if you put them on the path of having experienced inner happiness, that only comes from creative something or helping somebody, which is coming out of you, not in you, out of you. And that is lasting happiness. That is the true confidence. That is what gives you the joy, and it lasts for, if you see a kid, you have taken them on a mission to help somebody, some poor people or sick people or older people, and all day they have working hard, and at the end, when they come home, they have a different type of happiness. They have a higher self-worth, and that would last longer. Not like ice cream. After the ice cream is done, you want more or something else. So that distinction has to be there. So ultimately, that self-worth, which is experienced by making a difference, adding value, ultimately gives you lasting happiness, lasting joy, and lasting confidence.
Now, as a kid, because we're unstructured, we're not educated too much yet, we are free form, we don't have everybody telling us you have to do things exactly this right way. So we're being ourselves. We're being the people that we were created to be without the world holding us back, right? So part of that creativity, part of that freeness, part of that imagination, that dreaming that I can do anything. My feeling that I'm, I can jump off the house because I can fly. I can swim in the water. I can tame a wild animal. I can do anything. I'm a kid. I believe that I can do everything. That freedom to believe that I can do everything, that's what gives me at that point. It's not real because I really can't fly. I really can't tame a wild animal, but I have that feeling of ability. I have that feeling that I am, I can do some wonderful things in my life, and it gives me a self-worth without necessarily doing anything nice for somebody. I mean, I just feel good about myself because I'm a kid. Now, when that kid, though, naturally does something, because kids do, they pick a dandelion and they give it to their mom because they know it'll make her happy. They do a little task around the house, a little job, and they can't wait for their dad to come home because they want to tell them that they polished his shoes, or they clean their room, or something that they do that they know makes somebody happy. And I think that's along the lines of them doing something from within to make them feel better about themselves and give them that kind of happiness. Am I on the right track in terms of my thoughts here for kids? Is this making sense?
Yeah. See, if you extend that further, if a young 13-year-old is now become a gymnastic expert, gymnast, and now competing in the Olympics and bringing gold medal. Now, the intent of what we do, why we do, is so important. If the intent was to glorify her name as the gold medalist, that is one type of happiness, and that happiness lasts only for a while. And if the intent was to glorify the nation, glorify the young generation, or set an example or become a role model for young kids, that is a different intent. See, there was this gold medalist who won 7 gold medals in some sports, swimming or something. And it was all over the papers and news media and everywhere.
Sure.
As the time passed, nobody cared about him. People forgot. And he went into depression because his intent was only for himself.
No glory, yeah.
And then there was another gold medalist who won only 3 gold medals. And her intent was for the nation, for the country. And she took a platform to make a difference, because every success basically gives you a platform to do something more. By itself, that success is not the final destination, because ultimately it is all a journey. See, happiness, once it is considered as a destination, it is going to cause you depression because it will not last. Once you know that happiness is a journey, every step of the moment you have to do something to earn that happiness, then it's a beautiful journey. So that is the key, the intent to create the journey or intent to create a destination. So that is very important.
It is. I was bringing up again about the kids because I was trying to move those thoughts and those ideas that we had as a kid to us as adults. I was trying to think of how to transfer the same thought processes that we had as a kid, the same enthusiasm and everything then, and see. But as you're talking, I don't know if we really can. I mean, we learn so much. We become so, we're forced to have responsibilities in our life. We're forced. Now we have to go to work. We have to raise it, earn an income. We have to pay the bills. We have to drive places, and we have to, if we have children and a family, we have to take care of responsibility. I mean, we can't be kids when we're adults. We can't be free form and carefree.
We can learn from it. See, the lesson we learn to go forward to create happiness, lasting happiness for us, is stay in the present. Don't let your present be eroded by the worries or the past or the guilt or everything the past has happened to you, because every day is given to you absolutely uncontaminated, fresh. If you contaminate it with the past and sabotage that, no, I can't do, I failed twice and I'll fail again. So then your happiness is taken away from you. Second thing is, accept life as it comes to you. Don't live in your expectations, because expectations are the biggest killer of your happiness, because we are tied into our expectation. If this happens, then only I'll be happy. And thirdly, don't let your happiness be defined by the world around you, that you have to have this kind of a car to be happy or this kind of a job to be happy. So let you decide what makes you happy. And then thirdly, stay in the creative mode, because to earn the inner happiness, earn the self-worth, you have to make your last best better. And if you do not make your effort to make your last best better, then your self-worth is not going to be enhanced. And thirdly, don't get caught, or next is not get caught in the material world, and be grateful, unconditionally grateful.
And I'm going to add one more that you said. You actually gave us 5 really good ones. So we're going to have to come back and name those 5, but we don't have time. But I'm going to add the 6th one on there that you stumbled on a few minutes ago. And I don't mean stumbled in a negative way. I mean in a positive way, that if you think of happiness as a destination, if you think I want to be happy, then when you get there, it won't be enough.
Yes.
If you enjoy the journey, if you're happy with the journey along the way, and you're willing to go with the ebb and flow of life and do the acceptance and do the gratefulness and all those other things that you just talked about, and you don't think of it, boy, if I can only do this, I'll be happy. If I can only be this way, if I can only have this job or have this car or have this spouse or have this child, I'll be happy. If you don't think of that as a destination, but if you think of the journey as a road for happiness, not a road to happiness.
That's where the gratefulness comes in. Don't have any expectation. whatever it comes to you, be grateful for this.
All right, Ratanjit, you have spelled it out. I don't know if I can be happy all the time, as happy as some of those people are that we see, but I know that if any of us do the things that you've talked about here today, I know that we can be in a state of happiness a lot more than we are, and avoid depression and stress and a whole lot of the negative things that are very, very unfortunately prominent in our world. Thank you so much, Ratanjit, for sharing your good thoughts and wisdom and love with us again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And thank you to our audience. Thank you. However you're listening or watching, we appreciate that you've been with us here today. We look forward to being back with you again really soon on the next edition of Stress Free Living. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day.